Captain Marcus Washington stared at the airline CEO's shocked face as he pressed the button, locking down the entire fleet management system. "You removed me from my own flight for being black. Now I'm removing your planes from the sky." Before we dive into this shocking true story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button if you believe in justice, and subscribe to follow more stories of people standing up against discrimination. Are you ready to see how one man's courage changed an entire industry? Let's get into it. Marcus Washington was not your average pilot. At 45 years old, he had established himself as one of the most highly decorated aviators in both military and commercial sectors. His journey began when he graduated with honors from MIT with a degree in aerospace engineering. Unlike most of his classmates who went straight into design or research, Marcus had always dreamed of flying the machines he learned to build. After university, Marcus joined the Air Force, where he quickly distinguished himself as an exceptional pilot. Over 15 years of military service, he flew combat missions in multiple conflict zones, earning numerous commendations for his skill, judgment, and courage under fire. His commanding officers consistently rated him among the top 1% of pilots, noting his extraordinary ability to remain calm during crisis situations. When Marcus transitioned to civilian life, Sky American Airlines aggressively recruited him. The airline's executives recognized not only his impeccable flying credentials, but also his engineering background. They viewed him as the perfect combination of technical knowledge and practical experience. Within 3 years of joining Sky American, Marcus was promoted to captain and assigned to their most prestigious international routes. His safety record was flawless. In over 12 years with the airline, he had never had a single incident report filed against him. Passengers frequently submitted compliments about his smooth landings and reassuring pre-flight announcements. Fellow crew members requested to work with him, appreciating his professionalism and respectful leadership style. What made Marcus particularly valuable to Sky American was his additional role on the airline's Digital Systems Advisory Board. Given his engineering background, he was invited to consult on the modernization of their flight management systems. This gave him unique access to and understanding of the operational technology that kept the airline functioning. During system upgrades, he often spotted potential issues that even the IT specialists missed, saving the company millions in potential downtime. Despite his professional success, Marcus never forgot the challenges of being one of the few black pilots at the airline. According to industry statistics, less than 3% of commercial airline pilots were black, and Marcus had encountered his share of subtle discrimination throughout his career. From passengers doing double takes when seeing him in the cockpit to colleagues making assumptions about his qualifications, he had learned to navigate these microaggressions with dignified professionalism. At home in an affluent Atlanta suburb, Marcus enjoyed a stable family life with his wife Amelia, a successful cardiothoracic surgeon, and their teenage twins, Jordan and Jasmine. He took great pride in their accomplishments, particularly how they handled themselves in their predominantly white private school. Marcus and Amelia had taught them to excel while staying true to their identity, a balancing act they all performed daily. Beyond his official duties, Marcus had established a mentorship program for young minorities interested in aviation careers. He regularly spoke at schools in underserved communities, explaining the path to becoming a pilot and offering guidance on scholarships and training opportunities. Several of his mentees had already secured positions with regional airlines, with one recently joining Sky American's junior pilot program. The morning of the incident began like any other. Marcus woke at 5 a.m., completed his usual pre-flight preparation routine, and reviewed the weather patterns along his scheduled route from Atlanta to San Francisco. This particular flight carried additional significance as several high-profile technology executives and entertainment celebrities would be on board, traveling to a major industry conference. As he was preparing to leave for the airport, Marcus received an urgent call from his daughter Jasmine. She was distraught, reporting that she had been subjected to racial harassment in her college dormitory. Several students had placed a note on her door, suggesting she belonged in servant quarters rather than student housing. Marcus spent precious minutes consoling her and promising to address the situation properly when he returned from his flight. He contacted the dean's office to ensure immediate action, but had to rush to make his departure time. This disturbing news weighed heavily on his mind as he drove to the airport. As one of the airline's senior pilots, Marcus understood the importance of compartmentalizing personal concerns while on duty. By the time he reached the terminal, he had mentally shifted into professional mode, though the worry for his daughter lingered in the background. After clearing security with his crew credentials, Marcus proceeded to the pre-flight briefing where he met his co-pilot, Kevin Richardson, a younger pilot whom Marcus had helped train. They reviewed the flight plan, discussed potential turbulence areas, and confirmed the passenger manifest and cargo weight distribution. Everything was standard procedure until the flight dispatcher mentioned that they would be carrying several VIP passengers, including Richard Kensington, a major potential investor in Sky American's upcoming expansion project. Mr. Kensington is apparently quite particular about his travel arrangements, the dispatcher mentioned casually. The CEO personally made sure he got the exact first-class seat he requested. Marcus nodded without comment, though he found the special attention noteworthy. In his experience, such VIP treatment often created unnecessary complications. After completing the briefing, Marcus and Kevin proceeded to the aircraft for their visual inspection. They methodically checked every critical component, from the control surfaces to the engines, finding everything in perfect working order. The cabin crew had already begun preparing the interior as Marcus entered to introduce himself to the lead flight attendant and review any special service requirements for the VIP passengers. With all preparations complete and boarding still 45 minutes away, Marcus took his assigned first-class seat to review some additional flight documents before heading to the cockpit for final preparations. This was standard protocol for pilots deadheading to their next assignment, and Marcus had done this hundreds of times before. Little did he know that this routine procedure was about to change the course of his career and ultimately the entire airline industry. Marcus settled into seat 2A in the first-class cabin, his captain's uniform crisp and impeccable as always. He opened his tablet to review the latest weather updates along their route to San Francisco. The cabin was still relatively empty, with boarding not scheduled to begin for another 30 minutes. This quiet time allowed pilots to complete last-minute preparations before assuming cockpit duties. Flight attendant Vanessa Miller entered the cabin, preparing for the pre-boarding service. When she noticed Marcus, her expression shifted subtly. She approached him with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Excuse me, sir. May I see your boarding pass, please?" she asked, despite his clearly visible captain's uniform with 4 stripes on the epaulets, Sky American Airlines wings pinned to his chest, and his name tag identifying him as Captain Washington. Marcus looked up from his tablet, slightly surprised by the request, but maintained his professional demeanor. "Of course," he replied, retrieving his company ID and boarding pass from his breast pocket. Vanessa examined the documents with unusual scrutiny. "You're in first class?" Her tone carried unmistakable doubt. "Yes, I'm deadheading to San Francisco to captain the return flight this evening," Marcus explained patiently, using the industry term for pilots traveling to their next assignment. Vanessa nodded without apology and moved on to continue her preparations, but returned barely 5 minutes later. "I'm sorry, Captain, but could I see your boarding pass again? There seems to be some confusion with our seating arrangement." Her voice was louder now, drawing attention from the few other crew members preparing the aircraft. Marcus provided his documentation once more, beginning to sense that something unusual was happening. "Is there a problem with my assignment? This is standard procedure for pilots connecting to their next flight segment." Before Vanessa could respond, the cabin door opened, and a well-dressed white man in his 60s entered, accompanied by a Sky American customer service representative, who was carrying his briefcase and coat. The man scanned the cabin with an air of ownership before his gaze settled on Marcus. His expression hardened immediately. "That's my seat," he stated flatly, pointing at Marcus. The customer service representative checked her tablet. "Mr. Kensington, according to our system, you're assigned to 2B, which is the aisle seat. Captain Washington has 2A." Richard Kensington's face flushed with anger. "Unacceptable. I specifically requested the window seat on the right side of the aircraft. I always sit there. It's in my customer profile." Marcus began gathering his materials. I'm happy to move to another first-class seat if that would help resolve the situation, he offered professionally, although company protocol entitled him to his assigned seat. Kensington glared at Marcus, deliberately avoiding addressing him directly. Instead, he turned to Vanessa. Why is he even in first class? Shouldn't flight staff be in the back? Vanessa hesitated before responding. Sir, Captain Washington is traveling to his next assignment. It's company policy for pilots to— I don't care about company policy, Kensington interrupted. I'm a Platinum Elite member and personal friend of Walter Blackwell. Do you know who Walter Blackwell is? Your CEO, and I'm about to become a major investor in this airline. Fix this immediately. The situation escalated when Bradley Cooper, the flight attendant supervisor, was called to the scene. Cooper, a veteran employee known for prioritizing customer satisfaction above all else, quickly assessed the situation. Captain Washington, Cooper began in a hushed tone, pulling Marcus slightly aside. I can see this is becoming a difficult situation. Perhaps you could move to coach just for this flight? We can offer you extra miles as compensation. Marcus looked at Cooper in disbelief. Bradley, you know that's not protocol. I'm in uniform, on duty, and assigned to this seat. Cooper glanced nervously at Kensington, who was making a phone call, presumably to someone in airline management. I understand, sir, but Mr. Kensington is a very important client. Maybe we can make an exception just this once. An exception? To what? Marcus asked firmly. To the company's own policies or to treating all employees with basic dignity? Cooper's radio crackled with a message from the gate agent, informing him that boarding would be delayed by 15 minutes due to the seating issue. The pressure to resolve the situation quickly intensified. Kensington finished his call with a triumphant expression. That was Walter himself. He says to take care of me immediately, or heads will roll. He pointed at Marcus. Get him out of my seat now. Marcus remained calm but firm. Mr. Kensington, with all due respect, I am following company protocol by sitting in my assigned seat. If you'd prefer the window, perhaps you could be accommodated on the other side of the aircraft, in 1A or 1F, which are also window seats. I don't want another seat, Kensington snapped, his voice rising. I want my seat, and I want you to know your place. The loaded implication of those last three words hung in the air. Several nearby crew members froze, recognizing the racially charged subtext. Cooper's face paled. Sir, please lower your voice. We'll resolve this. I'll speak however I damn well please, Kensington retorted. Either remove him or I'll have Blackwell remove all of you. Cooper turned to Marcus with pleading eyes. Captain, please, for the sake of the company. Marcus looked around at the faces watching this confrontation unfold. He saw embarrassment, discomfort, and in some, silent apology. But no one was stepping forward to enforce the policies that should have protected him. This is discrimination, Bradley, Marcus said, quietly. And you know it. Cooper avoided his gaze. Security has been called to help resolve the situation. Security? Marcus was incredulous. You're calling security on your own captain for sitting in his assigned seat? 2 airport security officers arrived moments later. They approached, with visible discomfort when they realized the situation involved a uniformed captain. Sir, we've been asked to escort you from the aircraft, the first officer stated awkwardly. On what grounds? Marcus asked. Disrupting the boarding process, sir. Marcus stood slowly, maintaining his dignity. For the record, I want it noted that I am being removed from this flight, despite being in full uniform, with proper documentation, seated in my assigned seat according to company protocol. Several passengers had begun boarding during this confrontation and were recording the incident on their phones. Marcus could see the videos would be online before the plane even departed. As he gathered his items, the younger security guard leaned in and whispered, I'm sorry, Captain. This isn't right, but we have to follow orders. The walk through the terminal was humiliating. Passengers and airport staff stared as a fully uniformed captain was escorted through the concourse by security. Marcus maintained his composure, back straight, expression neutral. Though inside he felt a familiar burn of injustice that he had hoped his achievements would have insulated him from by now. Trevor Phillips, the airport operations manager, intercepted them halfway to the security office. "What in the world is happening here?" he demanded, recognizing Marcus immediately. "Captain Washington is being removed from Flight 1852 at the request of cabin crew," the security officer explained uncomfortably. "That's Captain Washington, one of our senior pilots," Trevor said incredulously. "There must be some mistake." "No mistake," Marcus replied evenly. "A VIP passenger wanted my seat, and the crew decided that his comfort was more important than company protocol or basic respect." Trevor immediately attempted to rectify the situation, but by then the aircraft door had been closed, and the flight was preparing for departure with Kensington comfortably seated in 2A. "We'll get you on the next flight to San Francisco," Trevor assured him. "I'll report this incident directly to headquarters." While waiting for his rescheduled flight, Marcus discovered that videos of his removal were already circulating on social media. The comments section filled with polarized responses, many expressing outrage at his treatment, others questioning what he must have done to deserve removal, and some containing explicitly racist statements about how he didn't look like a real pilot anyway. His phone rang with a call from Sky American's public relations department. "Captain Washington," the PR representative began carefully, "we understand there was an unfortunate incident this morning. We'd appreciate it if you would handle this matter quietly while we conduct an internal review." Marcus listened silently as the representative continued, explaining how social media misunderstandings could damage the company's reputation, and suggesting that Marcus issue a statement that there had been a simple misunderstanding about seating assignments. "Was it a misunderstanding when your flight crew called security to remove a uniformed captain from his assigned seat?" Marcus finally asked. "Or when Mr. Kensington said I should know my place?" The PR representative's voice became noticeably cooler. "Captain Washington, we all want what's best for Sky American. Sometimes that means handling personal disappointments professionally and discreetly." "I've been nothing but professional for my entire career," Marcus responded. "I expect the same professionalism from my employer in addressing clear discrimination." The conversation ended with vague assurances that the matter would be thoroughly investigated. As Marcus finally boarded his rescheduled flight, he couldn't help but notice how the flight attendants treated him with unusual caution, as if he had become radioactive within the company. His phone vibrated with text messages from colleagues who had seen the videos. Some expressed outrage and support, while others cautioned him about challenging someone with Kensington's connections. The most troubling message came from a fellow black pilot. "Watched it happen to me last year. Company buried it. Be careful, brother." The moment Marcus stepped off the plane in San Francisco, he was bombarded by reporters. Word had spread quickly through aviation circles and social media. The video of a uniformed black captain being escorted off his own airline's plane had gone viral, accumulating millions of views in just a few hours. "Captain Washington, can you confirm you were removed from first class because of your race?" shouted one reporter as camera flashes illuminated the terminal. "Is it true Richard Kensington called the CEO directly to have you removed?" asked another. Marcus maintained his professional composure, offering only a brief statement. "I was, removed from my assigned seat despite following all company protocols. I'll be addressing this matter directly with Sky American management." A text message appeared on his phone as he navigated through the crowd. "CEO wants meeting. Hotel conference room. 1 hour. No pleasantries, no apology, just a command." Marcus felt his jaw tighten but replied with a simple acknowledgement. The hotel conference room was prepared for damage control. Walter Blackwell, Sky American CEO, sat at the head of a small table flanked by Patricia Winters, the HR director, and James Morgan, the company's chief legal counsel. Their faces were masks of corporate concern. "Marcus," Blackwell began with forced familiarity, "this has become quite a situation. First, let me say that Sky American Airlines deeply regrets any misunderstanding that occurred this morning." "Misunderstanding?" Marcus repeated, his voice level. "I was removed from my assigned seat while in uniform because a white passenger didn't want to sit next to me. There's video evidence of the entire incident." Blackwell shifted uncomfortably. "These situations are always more complex than they Appear. Mr. Kensington is a valued customer who had specific seating requirements that were unfortunately mishandled by our booking system. Mr. Kensington told me to know my place, Marcus countered. What exactly did he mean by that, Walter? The CEO's eye twitched at the direct challenge. Richard can be old-fashioned in his expression. I'm sure he meant no offense. James, Morgan, the legal counsel, slid a folder across the table. We've prepared a statement for release to the press. We'd appreciate your cooperation in putting this unfortunate incident behind us quickly. Marcus read the prepared statement, which characterized the event as a seating misunderstanding that in no way reflects Sky American's commitment to diversity and inclusion. There was no acknowledgement of discrimination, no apology to him, personally, and no mention of disciplinary action for the crew members who violated protocol. I can't sign this, Marcus stated, pushing the folder back. Patricia Winters spoke up, her voice carrying the practiced empathy of a crisis manager. Captain Washington, we understand you're upset, but you should know that Richard Kensington is currently in discussions to invest $120 million in our Asian market expansion. This situation has created complications in those negotiations. So my dignity is less important than his money? Marcus asked plainly. Blackwell's corporate mask slipped momentarily, revealing irritation. This isn't about dignity. It's about business realities. Look, Marcus, maybe it would be best if you took some time off while we sort this out. Paid leave, of course. You're suspending me for being discriminated against? Not suspending, Winters corrected quickly. Offering you time to recover from this stressful incident. Marcus leaned forward. I want to file a formal complaint about racial discrimination. I want the flight crew held accountable for violating company policies. And I want a public apology that acknowledges what actually happened. Morgan cleared his throat. Filing a formal complaint is certainly your right, though I should mention it would involve a lengthy investigation during which you would be placed on administrative leave, unpaid in this case as per company policy for incidents under review. The threat was thinly veiled. Marcus stood his ground. Then I'll file the complaint and accept the consequences. After the meeting, Marcus attempted to submit his formal complaint to HR, only to be told by Patricia Winters that the system required special handling for complaints involving high-profile customers. His documentation would need additional review before being formally entered into the system. Would you tolerate this kind of treatment? Comment number 1. If you believe corporations should be held accountable when they allow discrimination, even against their own employees. Hit that like button if you think Marcus is right to stand his ground. Subscribe to see more stories of people fighting back against systemic injustice. What would you do if you were in Marcus's position? Would you risk your career to stand up for what's right? Let's see what happened next. That evening, an anonymous email arrived in Marcus's hotel inbox containing an internal company memo. The document outlined Sky American's strategy for mitigating public relations impact of the Washington incident. It detailed plans to characterize Marcus as difficult and uncooperative, while emphasizing Kensington's long-standing loyalty to the airline. Most disturbing was a directive to search Marcus's employment history for any incidents that could be leveraged to shift narrative focus. Marcus immediately called his friend Anthony Johnson, a corporate attorney who specialized in employment discrimination cases. They're building a case against you, Anthony confirmed after reviewing the leaked memo. Classic corporate playbook, turn the victim into the villain. What are my options? Marcus asked. Document everything. Record all conversations if legal in your state, and don't sign anything they put in front of you. Anthony paused. You should know, fighting this might end your career with Sky American, regardless of the outcome. I worked too hard to get where I am to let them erase me like this, Marcus replied. The next morning, several news outlets ran stories about the incident. Most focused on the viral video and public outrage, but one business channel featured an exclusive interview with an unnamed Sky American executive who described Marcus as a talented pilot with a history of sensitivity about perceived slights, who had overreacted to a routine seating adjustment. By afternoon, Marcus received A call from Sky American's settlement team. They offered a financial package, 3 years' salary and benefits in exchange for his resignation and signing of a non-disclosure agreement that would prevent him from discussing the incident publicly. "This is a generous offer, Captain Washington," the settlement negotiator explained. "It allows you to transition to another airline without financial hardship while protecting everyone's interests. Everyone except those who might face similar discrimination in the future," Marcus noted. "I'm not interested in being silenced." The negotiator's tone cooled considerably. "Captain Washington, I should advise you that declining this offer would be unwise. The company is prepared to defend its actions vigorously, and litigation could take years with no guarantee of success." "I'll take my chances with the truth," Marcus responded, before ending the call. Within hours, Marcus received notification that his next scheduled flights had been reassigned to other pilots due to scheduling optimization. No explanation was provided for why a senior captain was suddenly without assignments. That evening, as Marcus contemplated his next steps, he received a phone call from a blocked number. The caller, who identified himself only as a Sky American employee, spoke quickly and nervously. "Captain Washington, I can't talk long. They're building a case against you, claiming you've had attitude problems, that you've been difficult with crew members. They're interviewing people, pressuring them to say you've been problematic. Some are standing firm, but others are afraid for their jobs." "Who is they?" Marcus asked. "Executive team. Blackwell is personally involved. Kensington threatened to pull his investment if you weren't handled. Just be careful. They play dirty." The caller hung up abruptly. Marcus stared at his phone, the reality of his situation sinking in. He was up against not just one racist passenger, but an entire corporate machine willing to destroy his reputation to protect their bottom line. For the first time since the incident began, he felt a flicker of doubt. How could he fight an opponent with such vast resources and so little moral restraint? As he contemplated his seemingly limited options, his phone chimed with another message. This one from an unexpected source that would change everything. "Ching, and remember, change begins when someone refuses to move from their rightful place, both literally and figuratively." Marcus sat in his hotel room staring at the message that had just appeared on his phone. "Remember Project Aurora? The back door still exists. Might be useful. Call me. Rajiv." Rajiv Patel had been Sky American's senior systems architect until he left for a Silicon Valley startup 2 years earlier. He and Marcus had worked together on the airline's Digital Systems Modernization Committee, codenamed Project Aurora. Marcus's mind raced as he dialed Rajiv's number. "I didn't expect to hear from you," he said when Rajiv answered. "Saw the video," Rajiv replied without preamble. "Disgusting how they treated you. Then I heard through industry channels that Blackwell is trying to bury you to protect Kensington's investment. Made me remember our conversations about ethical corporate leadership." During Project Aurora, Marcus and Rajiv had spent countless hours discussing the airline industry's problems with diversity and corporate accountability. As the only people of color on the Modernization Committee, they had bonded over shared experiences of subtle discrimination. "What did you mean about the back door?" Marcus asked, though he already suspected the answer. "During beta testing, we created a system administrator access point. Remember? It was supposed to be removed before the final implementation, but I discovered it was still active when I was doing some final checks before I left. I documented it in my handover notes, but apparently nobody bothered to address it." Marcus remembered the back door clearly. It had been created to allow system testing without disrupting normal operations. With proper credentials, someone could access the airline's operational systems, scheduling, payroll, budget approvals, and more, without triggering security alerts. "I never used it," Rajiv continued, "but I thought you should know it exists, especially now that they're trying to destroy your career over this." The revelation presented Marcus with an ethical dilemma. Using the back door would technically be unauthorized access. Though as a systems committee member, he had been granted system administrator privileges that had never officially been revoked. He could potentially leverage this access to defend himself, but at what cost? "I need to think about this," Marcus told Rajiv. but thank you for the information. After ending the call, Marcus began researching how Sky American had handled similar discrimination cases in the past. He spent hours combing through news archives, legal databases, and aviation industry forums. A pattern emerged. 5 previous discrimination cases had been settled quietly, with employees signing NDAs and disappearing from the company. In each case, Sky American had initially denied wrongdoing, then attacked the employee's credibility, and finally offered a settlement when media attention began to wane. Not once had the company admitted fault or changed its practices. Marcus also discovered that Sky American's board was scheduled to meet in 3 days to approve the $120 million budget for the Asian market expansion, the project Kensington was investing in. According to the leaked meeting agenda, Blackwell would be presenting the final proposal, with Kensington in attendance as a special guest. This timing presented an opportunity. If Marcus could demonstrate that he had leverage, without actually causing harm to the airline's operations or safety, he might force a more equitable resolution. He opened his laptop and carefully tested the backdoor access Rajiv had mentioned. Using his old system credentials, he was able to log in successfully. The system recognized him as an authorized administrator, just as Rajiv had said. Marcus was meticulous in his exploration, ensuring he left no trace of his access. He discovered he could view but not alter critical safety systems, a necessary firewall protection. However, he could access the budget approval workflow, scheduling, systems, and most importantly, the digital signature protocols required for finalizing major financial decisions. For several hours, Marcus tested various scenarios, confirming that he could effectively freeze the budget approval process without affecting flight operations or safety protocols. Such an action would prevent the board from finalizing the $120 million expansion deal, but wouldn't ground any planes or endanger passengers. As dawn approached, Marcus began documenting everything that had happened since the incident on the EU plane. He created a comprehensive timeline, saved copies of the viral videos, the leaked internal memo, and records of his conversations with Sky American executives. He also prepared a detailed proposal for anti-discrimination reforms that the airline could implement. Next, he wrote a program that would automatically lock down the budget approval system at precisely the moment it would be needed during the board meeting. The program was elegant in its simplicity. It would trigger only if his personal employee access code was deactivated, which would happen if they fired him. The system would display a simple message: budget approval temporarily suspended. Contact System Administrator M. Washington for resolution. As a final precaution, Marcus reached out to Olivia Chen, a journalist he trusted at the aviation industry. Review. Without revealing his plans regarding the system access, he provided her with documentation of the discrimination he had faced and the company's subsequent attempts to silence him. "I can't promise when I'll publish," Chen told him, "but I'll make sure your side of the story is told accurately." As Marcus completed these preparations, his phone chimed with an email notification. It was from Sky American's HR department. Notice of employment status review. They were moving to terminate him. The message was clear. Sky American had chosen Kensington's millions over justice. With a sense of calm determination, Marcus activated his program. The countdown had begun. The morning after receiving his termination notice, Marcus met with Sandra Ortiz, a representative from the pilots' union. They sat in a quiet corner of a cafe near the San Francisco airport, away from curious eyes and ears. "What they're doing is textbook discrimination and retaliation," Sandra said after reviewing his documentation. "The union can file a grievance, but honestly, Marcus, Sky American has powerful lawyers who specialize in delaying these processes until employees give up." "I'm not giving up," Marcus replied firmly. Sandra studied him carefully. "You know, you're not the first. There's actually an informal network of minority employees at Sky American who faced similar situations. I need to talk to them," Marcus said immediately. Over the next 48 hours, Marcus connected with this underground network: flight attendants, mechanics, gate agents, and even 2 other pilots who had experienced discrimination, but had been silenced through settlements or intimidation. Each had a story that echoed his own. instances of being overlooked for promotions, receiving harsher discipline than white colleagues for similar infractions, or enduring racist comments from passengers that management dismissed as misunderstandings. With Sandra's help, Marcus began collecting these testimonials, ensuring each was documented and verified. They formed a damning pattern of institutional racism that Sky American had systematically buried. Meanwhile, the video of Marcus being removed from the plane continued gaining traction online. The hashtag #They'reFlyingWhileBlack began trending, with thousands sharing their own experiences of discrimination in air travel. Several celebrities and social media influencers with large followings expressed outrage, some publicly announcing they would boycott Sky American until the airline properly addressed the situation. Jerome Williams, a popular music artist with millions of followers, canceled his promotional partnership with Sky American, posting, "Can't represent a company that disrespects black excellence. Captain Washington deserved better." Flying while black. As public pressure mounted, pilots from competing airlines began showing solidarity. Captain Derek Johnson of Continental Airways, who had known Marcus from their Air Force days, organized a statement signed by over 300 pilots condemning Sky American's actions and calling for industry-wide anti-discrimination reforms. The financial impact was immediate. Sky American's stock price dropped 7% in 2 days as the boycott movement gained momentum. Anxious investors began questioning the company's crisis management approach in financial news segments. Marcus received an invitation to appear on the National Morning Show, one of the country's most watched news programs. With Anthony's legal guidance, he accepted, seeing an opportunity to share his story directly with millions of viewers. During the interview, Marcus was articulate, measured, and compelling. He didn't raise his voice or show anger, instead calmly, detailing the events and their broader implications. "This isn't just about one seat on one flight," he explained. "It's about whether corporations value human dignity over profit. It's about whether a black professional with decades of exemplary service can expect the same respect as anyone else." When the host asked if he was concerned about his career prospects after publicly challenging Sky American, Marcus answered honestly, "Of course I am. But I've received messages from black children who dream of becoming pilots. What message would I send them if I allowed myself to be silenced?" The interview resonated powerfully with viewers. Within hours, Sky American's customer service lines were flooded with calls from customers canceling reservations and rewards program memberships. The airline's crisis management team scrambled to contain the damage. They released a statement, claiming Marcus had a history of interpersonal conflicts with colleagues and suggesting the viral video didn't show the complete context of the incident. They announced an internal investigation headed by their own legal team, a move transparency advocates immediately criticized as insufficient. Behind the scenes, the company launched an aggressive campaign to discredit Marcus. He learned from union contacts that investigators were combing through his personnel file, interviewing colleagues about any past disagreements, and even researching his social media history for potentially controversial posts. The situation took a darker turn when Amelia received a threatening phone call at the hospital where she worked as a surgeon. The anonymous caller suggested she control her husband before his actions caused problems for the whole family. Simultaneously, Jasmine reported that the harassment at her college had intensified, with anonymous notes referencing her troublemaker father. When Marcus contacted the dean, he was told the university was doing everything possible. But one of the board members, who happened to be a business associate of Richard Kensington, had questioned whether the incidents were being exaggerated for attention. That evening, the Washington family gathered for a video call to discuss the escalating situation. Jordan, who had remained quiet about the controversy at his own school, finally admitted that classmates had been sharing memes mocking his father. "Maybe you should just take their money, Dad," he suggested quietly. "Is this worth what it's doing to us?" Marcus looked at the strained faces of his family, the people he had always sought to protect. "I need to know what you all truly think," he said. "This affects all of us." Amelia spoke first. "I married a man of principle. I don't want that man to disappear because some wealthy investor thinks he's above human decency." Jasmine nodded, in agreement. "Dad, what happened to you happens to us too, just in different ways. If you back down, nothing changes." Jordan hesitated before adding, "I was scared at first, but I'm more scared of living in a world where people can treat us this way and get away with it." Their support strengthened Marcus's resolve, but he worried about the increasing pressure on his family. He needed to accelerate his timeline. Later that night, Jordan called back privately. "Dad, I've been doing some digging. There's a connection you should know about." Jordan, who had inherited his father's technical aptitude, had discovered that one of his university's board members, the same one minimizing Jasmine's harassment, sat on Sky American's board and had business ties to Kensington stretching back decades. "They're all connected, Dad. It's not just about an airline seat. It's about power and who gets to have it." As Marcus processed this information, his phone rang. The caller ID showed unknown, but he answered anyway. "Captain Washington, this is Eleanor Michaels. I'm on Sky American's board of directors." Marcus was instantly alert. Board members rarely contacted employees directly. "I can't speak long," Eleanor continued, her voice low. "What's happening to you is wrong. Several of us on the board are uncomfortable with Blackwell's handling of this situation, but Kensington has significant influence." "Why are you calling me?" Marcus asked cautiously. "The board meeting tomorrow. Blackwell doesn't know that some of us have been discussing his leadership failures. This incident has exposed deeper problems." She paused. "If you were to attend that meeting and present your case directly to the full board, some of us would support you." "Blackwell would never allow me in that room," Marcus pointed out. "I can get you in," Eleanor replied. "But whatever you're planning to do, it needs to happen tomorrow. After the budget approval goes through, Kensington's influence becomes even stronger." After ending the call, Marcus sat in silence, contemplating this unexpected alliance. Eleanor's offer aligned perfectly with the leverage he had created through the system backdoor. The pieces were falling into place for a confrontation that would either vindicate him or end his aviation career permanently. He sent a secure message to Rajiv. "It's happening tomorrow. No going back now." The Sky American corporate headquarters in Atlanta projected power and success. Its gleaming 50-story glass tower dominated the skyline, the company logo prominently displayed at the summit. For the board meeting, security had been heightened, with additional personnel stationed throughout the lobby and executive floors. Marcus arrived wearing his full captain's uniform, which still commanded automatic respect despite Sky American's attempts to diminish him. As Eleanor had promised, a temporary access badge awaited him at the security desk. "Ms. Michaels authorized this for the technical presentation," the security officer explained, clearly unaware of Marcus's actual purpose. The executive elevator whisked him to the 48th floor. Eleanor met him in a side corridor, her expression tense. "The meeting started 15 minutes ago," she whispered. "Blackwell is presenting the expansion plan now. Kensington is there, as a special guest. The vote is scheduled in 30 minutes. Will I be able to speak?" Marcus asked. "I'll make sure of it," Eleanor assured him. "Several board members are concerned about the public relations disaster this incident has created. They'll want to hear from you directly." Inside the boardroom, Walter Blackwell stood before a massive display screen showing projections of Sky American's proposed Asian market expansion. 20 board members sat around a polished mahogany table, with Richard Kensington positioned prominently near Blackwell. "With this investment," Blackwell was saying, "we project a 17% revenue increase. In the first year alone, the $120 million initial outlay will—" He stopped mid-sentence as the boardroom door opened and Marcus entered, followed by Eleanor. The room fell silent. Blackwell recovered quickly. "This is a closed meeting. Security." "I invited Captain Washington," Eleanor stated firmly. "As a board member, I have that prerogative. Several of us feel we need to hear directly from him about the incident that's currently costing our airline millions in canceled reservations and negative publicity." Another board member, an older gentleman, nodded. "I concur. We've only heard management's version of events." Blackwell's face reddened. "This is highly irregular. We're in the middle of a critical presentation, And facing a potential discrimination lawsuit that could damage our brand for years, countered another board member. I think we can spare 10 minutes. Kensington stood abruptly. This is outrageous. I won't sit here and listen to an employee who should have been terminated already. He pointed at Marcus. This man is trying to extort the company with false accusations of racism. False. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm, but carrying authority that silenced the room. I have documentation proving otherwise, including internal communications, revealing efforts to discredit me rather than address the discrimination I experienced. Security personnel had arrived at the door, but seemed unsure whether to intervene given the board members' apparent interest in hearing Marcus. Since I'm here, Marcus continued, I'd like to present evidence of a pattern of discrimination at Sky American that goes far beyond my individual case. Blackwell attempted to regain control. The board doesn't have time for unsubstantiated allegations. We have a major business decision to finalize. Actually, Marcus replied, I believe this information directly impacts that decision. He connected his tablet to the room's display system, replacing Blackwell's presentation with a comprehensive timeline of discrimination cases at Sky American. Over the past 5 years, there have been 27 formal complaints of racial discrimination filed internally. All were either dismissed or settled with non-disclosure agreements. No policies were changed. No one was held accountable. The board members leaned forward, studying the data with increasing concern. This isn't just a moral failing, Marcus continued. It's a business liability. The current boycott has already cost the airline an estimated $30 million in canceled bookings. Social media sentiment has turned sharply negative, with customer loyalty metrics dropping daily. Kensington interrupted furiously. This is manipulation. He's a disgruntled employee trying to extort concessions. Are you all going to let him derail a $120 million opportunity over hurt feelings? Hurt feelings, Marcus repeated, maintaining his composure. Mr. Kensington, is that how you characterize being removed from my assigned seat because of my race? Is that how you describe telling me to know my place? I never said that, Kensington shouted. Actually, you did, Marcus replied, playing a clear audio recording from the incident that someone had captured on their phone. Kensington's voice was unmistakable, as was the racial subtext of his comments. The board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. One whispered to another, "This is worse than we were told." Kensington's face contorted with rage. "This means nothing. I'm offering this company the opportunity of a decade, and you're all being manipulated by this troublemaker." Interesting choice of words, Marcus noted calmly. Would you have used the same term for a white pilot defending company policy? This is absurd, Kensington sputtered. Blackwell, shut this down now, or I'm walking away from the deal. The CEO looked torn between appeasing his investor and addressing the growing concern among board members. Captain Washington, one board member said, while this is disturbing, what exactly are you hoping to achieve here today? 3 things, Marcus replied promptly. A formal acknowledgement of the discrimination I experienced, implementation of new anti-discrimination policies with real accountability measures, and a company-wide diversity initiative with measurable goals. Blackwell laughed dismissively. Or what? You'll continue this social media campaign? We can weather that storm. Actually, Marcus said, I have something more immediate in mind. He turned to the room's main display and entered a command on his tablet. As some of you know, I served on the Digital Systems Modernization Committee. During that time, I was granted certain access privileges that apparently were never revoked. The screen changed to show the airline's operational dashboard. Every board member recognized it as the system that controlled everything from flight, scheduling to budget approvals. Captain Washington, Blackwell warned, if you're suggesting what I think you are, that would be a criminal act. Would it? Marcus asked innocently. Using access credentials that were officially granted to me and never revoked, I'm simply demonstrating a security vulnerability that the company should address. With deliberate calmness, Marcus pressed a final command on his tablet. Instantly, every digital display in the boardroom changed to show the same message. System access denied. Budget approval protocol suspended. Has a workplace ever mistreated you because of your race? Comment number 1 if you believe Marcus is justified in using his technical knowledge to fight back against discrimination. Hit that like button if you think more employees should stand up to corporate bullies. Subscribe to see more stories of everyday heroes fighting systemic injustice. What would you do if you were on that board? Would you side with money or morality? Let's see how this corporate showdown ends. The room erupted in chaos. Blackwell frantically dialed the IT department while board members demanded explanations. "What's happening?" the board chairman asked sharply. "I've temporarily frozen the budget approval system," Marcus explained calmly. "No flights are affected, no safety systems are compromised. But until this system is unlocked, the board cannot digitally approve the $120 million expansion budget. And only, I can unlock it." Kensington lunged toward Marcus but was restrained by security. "This is extortion. It's criminal hacking." "My credentials were never revoked," Marcus reiterated. "I'm still in the system as an authorized administrator. Check for yourselves." The IT director, reached by speakerphone, confirmed this uncomfortable truth. His access is still valid in the system. Technically, he hasn't broken in. He's using authorized credentials. "Fix it," Blackwell demanded. "We're trying, sir," the IT director replied. But the system lockdown protocol was designed to be robust against external tampering. It would take days to override without the administrator's cooperation. Kensington turned to the board members. "This is outrageous. I'm withdrawing my offer immediately unless this man is arrested and the system restored." A notification appeared on the room's displays showing Sky American's real-time stock price, which had begun dropping as news of the system lockdown leaked to financial markets. "Every minute we delay addressing this situation costs the company money," Marcus pointed out. "You've had 2 days to do the right thing. Instead, you tried to destroy my reputation and threaten my family." "What are your terms?" the board chairman asked, cutting through the noise. "As I said, a public acknowledgement of discrimination, new anti-discrimination policies with real accountability, and a company-wide diversity initiative with measurable goals." Marcus handed out copies of a detailed proposal he had prepared. "Everything is outlined here, including implementation timelines." While board members reviewed the document, security attempted to confiscate Marcus's tablet, but it was too late. The program had already been activated and would continue running independently. "This is actually quite reasonable," one board member commented, looking through the proposal. "Reasonable?" Blackwell exploded. "He's holding the company hostage." "And why did he feel that was necessary?" Eleanor countered. "Because you prioritized one investor's comfort over addressing blatant discrimination against one of our most valued employees." The room divided into factions, with some board members arguing for meeting Marcus's demands while others insisted on pursuing legal action, regardless of the financial consequences. The debate grew heated as stock price alerts continued to appear on the screens, showing an accelerating decline. Marcus quietly gathered his materials. "You know how to reach me when you're ready to talk." He walked calmly to the door. "You won't get away with this," Blackwell called after him. Marcus paused. "I already have. The question is whether Sky American will get away with discrimination again or finally change its culture." With that, he left the boardroom in uproar behind him. The hours following the board meeting confrontation escalated into full-scale corporate warfare. Sky American's IT department worked frantically to regain control of the budget approval system, while the public relations team crafted statements attempting to minimize the situation. Neither effort proved successful. News of the system lockdown leaked almost immediately, with aviation industry blogs speculating about major technical failures at Sky American. The company's stock dropped 11% by market close, erasing hundreds of millions in market value in a single day. Marcus returned to his Atlanta home, which was quickly surrounded by news vans and reporters seeking comment. Inside, he gathered with his family and Anthony Johnson, his attorney, to prepare for the company's inevitable counterattack. "They'll come at you with everything they've got," Anthony warned. "Computer fraud charges, breach of contract, economic interference. They'll throw the whole legal arsenal at you." As if on cue, Marcus's phone rang with a call from the FBI's cybercrime division. Special Agent Dominic Torres requested an interview regarding potential unauthorized computer access affecting interstate commerce. "This is their first play," Anthony noted after Marcus ended the call. "They're trying to frame this as criminal hacking rather than civil disobedience." Marcus had anticipated this move. "I've got complete documentation showing I was a system administrator whose access was never properly revoked. I followed established protocols that I helped create." The meeting with FBI agents the next morning was tense, but ultimately inconclusive. Marcus presented evidence that his system credentials remained valid, that he had accessed only systems he was authorized to use, and that no operational or safety systems had been compromised. "Captain Washington," Agent Torres said carefully, "this situation falls into a gray area legally. Your credentials were technically valid, but the company claims your intent was malicious." "My intent," Marcus corrected, "was to address racial discrimination after all proper channels failed. The company's own records will show I attempted to file formal complaints that were blocked." While the FBI investigation continued, Sky American faced mounting pressure from multiple directions. Major corporate clients, concerned about association with a discrimination scandal, began quietly shifting their business travel contracts to competitors. The boycott movement gained momentum as civil rights organizations joined the cause, organizing protests at major airports. Inside Sky American, executives began pointing fingers. Leaked recordings of an emergency executive meeting revealed Blackwell blaming the HR director for not revoking Marcus's system access, while the chief information officer argued that the CEO had rejected previous budget requests for improved security protocols. Board members publicly distanced themselves from Blackwell's handling of the situation. Eleanor Michaels gave an anonymous interview to Aviation Weekly, describing a culture of expediency over ethics that had developed under the current leadership. Richard Kensington, furious about the collapse of the expansion deal, threatened legal action against the airline for failure to maintain proper security protocols, seemingly oblivious to the irony of his position. 5 days after the system lockdown began, an emergency board meeting was called to discuss removing Blackwell as CEO. He fought back by authorizing the company's legal team to file a lawsuit against Marcus, seeking millions in damages for intentional interference with business relations. As these corporate battles raged, Marcus began receiving death threats. Anonymous messages promised to put him in his place permanently and teach him what happens to people who don't know their role. The family hired private security protection, and local police increased patrols around their home. Despite these pressures, Marcus found unexpected allies emerging. The tech community rallied behind him, with security experts publicly praising the system design that ensured safety systems remained unaffected by the budget lockdown. "This wasn't reckless hacking," noted a respected cybersecurity blogger. "This was precise, ethical pressure, applied exactly where it would force accountability without endangering the public. It's actually brilliant." Former colleagues reached out privately to express support. Even some current Sky American employees began wearing small black ribbon pins, subtle symbols of solidarity that management couldn't easily prohibit. 7 days into the standoff, Sky American discovered they couldn't unlock the budget system without Marcus's cooperation. The redundancies built into the security protocol, ironically implemented on Marcus's recommendation years earlier, prevented even the most skilled IT specialists from bypassing the administrator authentication. "The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do," explained Dr. Lisa Wong, the original architect of Sky American's operational systems, in a technical analysis published online. "It's preventing unauthorized changes to critical financial protocols." The fact that management now considers this a malfunction speaks volumes about their actual security priorities. With the quarterly financial reporting deadline approaching and the system still locked, the board split into two factions. One group, led by Eleanor Michaels, advocated for meeting Marcus's demands and rebuilding the company's damaged reputation. The other, aligned with Blackwell, pushed for escalating legal action regardless of the business consequences. "This is about principle," Blackwell insisted during a heated board call. "If we give in to this kind of pressure, what's to stop every employee with a grievance from holding the company hostage?" "Perhaps addressing grievances properly in the first place," Eleanor countered. We're facing this crisis because legitimate complaints of discrimination were ignored. The turning point came when CEO Blackwell, against the advice of the IT department, authorized an aggressive attempt to override the system lockdown. The rushed effort accidentally interfered with the flight tracking subsystem, causing a 30-minute outage that triggered an automatic FAA investigation. Though no flights were endangered, the incident demonstrated exactly what Marcus had been careful to avoid: impact on operational systems. The FAA's involvement elevated the situation from an internal corporate matter to a potential regulatory issue. With this development, Marcus received an unexpected call from the board chairman. "Captain Washington, the board would like to discuss a resolution to this situation. We're prepared to consider your proposals seriously if you'll meet with our representatives." Marcus looked at his family, who had weathered this storm alongside him. Their home had become both sanctuary and war room. Jasmine had temporarily withdrawn from college due to harassment. Jordan had been staying with friends to avoid the media attention. Amelia had taken leave from the hospital after receiving threatening calls there. "I'll meet with them," Marcus agreed, "but I won't back down on the core issues." As he prepared for the negotiation, Marcus received one final piece of leverage. Dr. Wong, the original systems architect, publicly confirmed that Marcus's actions constituted a legitimate use of authorized access to demonstrate a policy compliance failure, rather than hacking, potentially undermining the company's legal case against him. With this technical validation, Marcus headed into negotiations with renewed confidence, knowing that the outcome would not only determine his future, but potentially transform an industry. The negotiation took place at a neutral location, a conference room at the Atlanta Federal Reserve Building, selected for both its security and its symbolic significance as a place of financial accountability. Marcus arrived with Anthony Johnson and Sandra Ortiz from the Pilots Union. Sky American sent a newly formed committee of 3 board members, led by Eleanor Michaels, along with their general counsel. Notably absent were CEO Walter Blackwell and Richard Kensington, whose presence Marcus had specifically objected to as a condition for the meeting. "Let's be clear about our objectives," Eleanor began once everyone was seated. "We need to resolve this situation before further damage occurs to the company, to Captain Washington's reputation, and to the traveling public's confidence in our industry." Anthony placed Marcus's comprehensive proposal on the table. "My client has been consistent in his demands from the beginning. They are reasonable, implementable, and ultimately beneficial to Sky American's long-term success." The airline's general counsel, Victoria Hayes, leaned forward. "Before we discuss specific terms, we need assurance that the system will be unlocked regardless of the outcome of these talks." "That's not how negotiation works," Anthony replied calmly. "Resolution of both issues will happen concurrently." What followed was an intense, methodical dissection of Marcus's proposal. First, a public acknowledgement of the discrimination incident, including an apology to Marcus and a commitment to do better. The company representatives insisted on language that limited legal liability while still accepting responsibility, a delicate balance that consumed hours of careful wordsmithing. Second, implementation of new anti-discrimination policies with genuine accountability measures. This included creating an independent review board for discrimination complaints, mandatory training for all staff, and clear consequences for policy violations at all levels of the organization. Third, a comprehensive diversity initiative with specific hiring goals, mentorship programs, and regular public reporting on progress. The company balked at numerical targets, but eventually agreed to percentage-based improvement metrics. Negotiations extended through the night and into the following day. Each point became a battlefield of language, implementation timelines, and enforcement mechanisms. The company continuously pushed for minimal changes with maximum public relations value, while Marcus insisted on substantive reforms with teeth. "Your diversity numbers in management and pilots are abysmal," Marcus pointed out during a particularly tense exchange. "Less than 4% of your pilots are black, and only 2% of executives. Those numbers haven't changed in a decade. Industry-wide problem," one board member responded dismissively, "which is why industry-wide leadership is needed." Marcus countered. Sky American has an opportunity to set a new standard. By the 36th hour of negotiations, with all participants exhausted, the company presented their final offer, a package that included a public statement acknowledging inconsistent application of seating policies, implementation of new training programs over an 18-month timeline, and a diversity initiative with no specific goals or accountability measures. "This isn't even close to acceptable," Anthony stated flatly. "Captain Washington," Victoria Hayes said with evident frustration, "the company has moved significantly from its initial position. We've been negotiating in good faith." "Have you?" Marcus questioned. "Because it seems you're still trying to minimize a clear case of racial discrimination and avoid making meaningful changes." "The reality," Eleanor interjected, "is that the board is divided. Some members remain convinced we should pursue legal action against you rather than address these issues. This offer represents the consensus we could reach." Marcus stood up. "Then we don't have an agreement. The system remains locked." As his team prepared to leave, Marcus paused. "As a show of good faith, however, I can demonstrate that partial system functionality could be restored to allow routine operations while keeping the budget approval protocol secured." He opened his laptop and accessed the system through his still valid credentials, temporarily lifting restrictions on scheduling and payroll functions while maintaining the lockdown on budget approvals. "This should allow the airline to function normally for basic operations," he explained. "But the expansion project remains frozen until we reach a real agreement." This tactical concession shifted the dynamic. It demonstrated both Marcus's technical control and his reasonable intentions, undermining the company's narrative that he was recklessly damaging the airline. The company representatives huddled in private consultation. When they returned, their posture had noticeably changed. "What would it take to reach an agreement today?" Eleanor asked directly. Marcus outlined his minimum requirements: a public acknowledgement specifically addressing racial discrimination, implementation of new policies within 6 months rather than 18, an independent review board for discrimination complaints, and concrete diversity goals with quarterly public reporting. "And one more thing," Marcus added, "I want my job back." This final demand created the greatest resistance. The company representatives argued that too much antagonism had developed for Marcus to return effectively to his position. "You want me to resign after being discriminated against, then fighting for accountability?" Marcus asked incredulously. "What message does that send to other employees facing similar treatment?" After another private consultation, Eleanor presented a counter-proposal. Marcus would resign as pilot, but be appointed to a newly created position heading an ethics and inclusion division, reporting directly to the board rather than the CEO. "You'd have real authority to implement the changes we're negotiating," she explained, "and the compensation package would exceed your current one." Marcus considered this carefully. "I'd need guarantees of independence and adequate resources, and I'd want the right to occasionally return to the cockpit as a certified check pilot to maintain my credentials." This framework finally broke the impasse. For the next 12 hours, the teams hammered out specific details: budget allocations for the new division, reporting structures, implementation timelines, and enforcement mechanisms. By the morning of the third day, an exhausted but satisfied Marcus reviewed the final agreement. It wasn't perfect, but it represented genuine progress, substantial changes that would affect not just Sky American, but potentially the entire industry. "We have a deal," he said finally. "I'll unlock the system after the public announcement." As both parties signed the binding agreement, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him here. What had begun as a humiliating removal from a first-class seat had evolved into an opportunity to reshape corporate accountability. The personal cost had been enormous, but so was the potential impact. "Schedule the press conference for tomorrow," Eleanor instructed as the meeting concluded, "and inform the board that the budget approval system will be fully operational immediately afterward." As Marcus gathered his materials, Victoria Hayes approached him privately. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "Blackwell's position is untenable after this. The board is already discussing succession plans." Marcus nodded, understanding the subtext. The company was changing already, starting at the top. The grand ballroom of the Atlanta Marriott Marquis was filled to capacity with journalists, industry representatives, and Sky American employees. The tension in the room was palpable as Walter Blackwell approached the podium, flanked by board, members, and executives. His face was a mask of professional composure, though those who knew him could see the barely contained anger beneath. "Good morning," Blackwell began stiffly. "Sky American Airlines acknowledges that 2 weeks ago an incident occurred which fell far short of our stated values and commitment to equal treatment of all passengers and employees." He continued with the carefully negotiated statement, publicly acknowledging that Captain Marcus Washington had experienced racial discrimination when removed from his assigned first-class seat to accommodate a white passenger. "This incident revealed shortcomings in our policies, training, and corporate culture that we are committed to addressing comprehensively," Blackwell continued. "We offer our sincere apology to Captain Washington and to all who have experienced discrimination while flying with or working for Sky American." Marcus sat in the front row, listening intently as Blackwell outlined the specific changes the airline would implement: mandatory anti-discrimination training for all employees, an independent review board for discrimination complaints, revised seating and customer service policies, and a comprehensive diversity initiative with published quarterly metrics. Then came the announcement that caused a stir among the assembled press. To ensure these initiatives receive the attention and resources they deserve, we are creating a new Ethics and Inclusion Division, which will report directly to the Board of Directors. I am pleased to announce that Captain Marcus Washington has agreed to lead this division as its executive director. Murmurs spread through the audience. This was more than the typical corporate damage control. It represented a structural change in how the airline would operate. Following the formal statements, Marcus demonstrated the restoration of the budget approval system in real time, using a tablet connected to the room's main display screens. The audience watched as access was granted, and the system returned to normal functionality. Sky American's stock price, which had been displayed on financial news channels throughout the crisis, immediately began to rebound as investor confidence returned. By market close that day, the airline had recovered nearly 70% of its losses from the previous 2 weeks. The transformation of Sky American didn't happen overnight, but over the following 6 months, tangible changes became evident. Under Marcus's leadership, the Ethics and Inclusion Division implemented comprehensive reforms. New hiring practices resulted in the most diverse pilot training class in the airline's history, with 37% of candidates coming from underrepresented groups. The Independent Review Board began processing previously buried discrimination complaints, resulting in several terminations of managers with patterns of biased behavior. Every employee, from baggage handlers to the CEO, completed enhanced anti-discrimination training developed in consultation with civil rights organizations. Most significantly, Richard Kensington was removed from the investor group after a shareholder lawsuit revealed his history of making racially charged comments about employees. His prized Asian expansion deal was restructured with different investors, on terms more favorable to Sky American. Walter Blackwell resigned under pressure 3 months after the press conference, citing personal reasons, but widely understood to have lost the board's confidence. His replacement, a respected industry veteran with a strong record on inclusion, made supporting Marcus's initiatives a top priority. Marcus himself found his new role challenging, but deeply satisfying. While he missed regular flying, he arranged to maintain his certifications by serving as a check pilot once monthly, evaluating new pilots during their qualification flights. The Washington family gradually rebuilt their sense of security. Jasmine returned to college, where the administration had implemented new anti-harassment policies after the publicity surrounding her treatment. Jordan found new confidence in standing up to peer pressure, inspired by his father's example. Marcus's mentorship program was officially adopted by the company with full funding, creating a pipeline for young people from underrepresented communities to enter aviation careers. The first class of 30 mentees included talented individuals who might otherwise never have considered becoming pilots. The ripple effects extended beyond Sky American. Marcus was invited to testify before a congressional committee on transportation, industry practices, where he advocated for federal standards on anti-discrimination training and reporting. Other airlines, seeing the positive public response to Sky American's reforms, proactively implemented similar measures. Industry conferences that had previously given minimal attention to diversity issues now featured prominent sessions on inclusive practices. 1 year after the incident, Marcus prepared for a special flight, his first return to the cockpit as a full command pilot since the confrontation. In a symbolic gesture, the airline had assembled an all-minority crew for this high-profile New York to Los Angeles route. As passengers boarded, many recognized him from the news coverage and offered words of appreciation. Before takeoff, Marcus made a brief announcement. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Captain Marcus Washington, and it's my privilege to fly with you today. A year ago, I was removed from my seat on one of our aircraft because of the color of my skin. Today, I'm back in the cockpit because people throughout this company and across the country stood up for what's right. Your journey today is possible because of countless journeys toward justice that came before. We expect smooth skies ahead, but if we encounter turbulence, we'll navigate through it together, just as we must do in life. Thank you for flying with us." The cabin erupted in spontaneous applause. The culmination of Marcus's journey came at the annual Aviation Industry Excellence Awards, where he was presented with the Humanitarian Leadership Award, a recognition never before given to a commercial pilot. As he approached the podium, he spotted familiar faces in the audience: Walter Blackwell, now working for a smaller regional airline, and Richard Kensington, whose influence in the industry had diminished considerably. "Aviation has always been about overcoming seemingly impossible barriers," Marcus began. "We conquered gravity, the sound barrier, and the vast distances between continents. Yet some barriers remain firmly in place, the artificial ones we create between people based on race, gender, and background." He continued, speaking without notes. "The true measure of progress isn't how high we can fly, but how we treat each other on the journey. Change doesn't come from comfortable conversations. It comes when someone refuses to surrender their dignity, even when it would be easier to remain silent." The audience listened in rapt attention as Marcus acknowledged the personal cost of his stand and the support that sustained him through the darkest moments. "This award doesn't belong to me alone," he concluded. "It belongs to every person who has ever been told, explicitly or implicitly, that they don't belong in a seat they've rightfully earned. And it belongs to every person who has ever stood up and said, 'No more.'" As the audience rose for a standing ovation, the event moderator announced breaking news. Legislation establishing nationwide transportation equity standards had just passed Congress and would be known as the Washington Act, in recognition of how one pilot's courage had catalyzed industry-wide change. Marcus looked out at the sea of faces, many representing the old guard of aviation, others the diverse future he had helped make possible. In that moment, he understood that his greatest achievement wasn't in the cockpit or the boardroom, but in proving that justice, while often delayed, could not be permanently denied when people of conscience refused to surrender their humanity. The discrimination he had faced in first class had led to first-class change, not just for one airline, but for an entire industry and all the passengers and employees who would benefit for generations to come. Have you ever witnessed someone standing up against discrimination and creating real change? Share your story in the comments below. If you believe more companies should be held accountable for discrimination, hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about everyday heroes who refuse to accept injustice. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs inspiration to stand up for what's right. Thank you for way. Captain Marcus Washington's journey teaches us that real change often requires extraordinary courage. When faced with discrimination, the easy path is to accept the settlement, sign the NDA, and disappear. The harder path, standing firm against a powerful system, carries personal risk, but creates lasting impact. The story demonstrates how institutions protect themselves rather than addressing injustice. Sky American prioritized a wealthy investor over their ethical obligations, revealing how discrimination persists through corporate complicity and silence. We learn that leverage matters. Marcus's technical knowledge gave him power that moral arguments alone couldn't provide. Sometimes systems only change when forced to confront consequences. Most importantly, this story shows that individual actions can transform entire industries. Marcus didn't just win his personal battle, he created structural changes benefiting countless others. His refusal to be silenced turned a moment of humiliation into a movement for accountability. The Washington Act symbolizes how justice often begins with one person saying enough and refusing to surrender their dignity, regardless of the cost. Have you ever witnessed discrimination in a professional setting? Share your experience in the comments below. Did you speak up or stay silent? What would you have done in Marcus's position? If you believe corporations should be held accountable for discriminatory practices, hit that like button to support this message. Subscribe to hear more stories of courage in the face of injustice, and share this video with someone who might need inspiration to stand up for what's right. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the most powerful act of resistance is simply refusing to move from your rightful place.